faced with. Is he going to act like the Babylonians, or is he going to stand firm on the Word and do what's right? So flipping over, if you got your books on 74, read a few sentences here. It says, in 586 BC, a third and final invasion of the Babylonians destroyed Judah and Jerusalem. And though many were killed in the invasion, some were taken into Babylonian exile. And we're going to talk about Daniel and the three here that are called Hananiah, Michael, Azariah, also may be known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Says the book of Daniel reveals God as a sovereign ruler. We know this. The Lord's mighty power, it was not restricted, though, to a geographic region. Daniel and his friends were faithful to the Lord, even in a foreign land. We may not be in a foreign country, so to speak, or a different part of the country, but, we're here in church as believers. This isn't a foreign land. When we get outside these doors, we are in a foreign land, whether you want to believe it or not. We are amongst people that mock us. We're amongst people that do believe like us. We're amongst people that have no desire at all to be around us. So we are walking around in a foreign land, and the question is how are we going to act? How are we going to live our life? Because Joey says it all the time, and I fully agree with it. I think most of you would agree here. I don't see our world getting better. I don't see it's going to get easier. It's just going to keep getting harder. And as it gets harder, it means that we're going to be in more situations where we're going to be asked to compromise our values. We're going to be asked to set those aside and be like the world. And are we going to do that? Or are we going to see like what's here in this chapter? Are we going to be like Daniel and see what he does? It says, the young exiles were placed in the care of, I may butcher this name, but Ashpenaz, Nebuchadnezzar's chief official. It says Nebuchadnezzar ordered Ashpenaz to choose the best among the exiles to be trained to eat from his table. It says Daniel was selected. So we got Nebuchadnezzar here. You just take, look at it in our politics. Take maybe like a vice president or a close friend that you would trust. So Nebuchadnezzar's official here is supposed to be finding the best of the best. So Daniel and his friends are here. And it says that he was instructed by the Babylonians so that he might serve in the king's court. The Babylonian ways and teachings were different from what he had been taught in Jerusalem. Kind of be like anything if we went to another country, how it would be. It says, but by learning the ways of the Babylonians, he was presented with more opportunities to honor God. So, I'm not telling us to be of the world and do things that the world do. However, it is, I think, important, and, Joey does this a lot when we talk about world events. I think it's important that we understand the world as best as we can so we can kind of put that hat on and try to have their point of view as to why they see things the way they do. Because if we don't understand that, we're going to have a hard time trying to teach them some of the things that we're trying to teach here that God tells us to do. We can reach them better if we can understand a little bit why they are. So Daniel's here. He's with the Babylonians. He's not going to compromise. We'll see that. But he is around them. So he's going to learn their ways. He's going to learn the things they do. But he's not going to, be involved with that. But he's still going to be around it. So kind of to put that on our perspective, we may not agree with some of the things that certain groups and organizations want to do. But we live in this world. And as long as we're in this world, those things are going to keep happening. We talk about this a lot. I'm not telling us to go embrace things, but again, boycott things. Is that really the answer? I mean, because if we're just in reality, there's nothing really in this world that's for God but as believers. I mean, organizations and companies, 99% of them, they're not going to come out and say, read the Bible. That's the one way to heaven. It's the only way to heaven. Because if they did that, they're going to be shut down, right? We know that's going to happen. So we're going to be in this world, and as long as we're here, again, it's not going to get any better, but we're called to be different people. Because if we're not different, if we're just floating around and doing the same things that the world's doing, how's anybody going to learn about Jesus? Right? But go ahead and get into the verses here. Daniel chapter 1, Starting in verse 8, it says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he had drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall you make me endanger my head to the king." So in short here, before I read what the analysis says up under it, the author's point of view, basically, for some reason, it doesn't get specific with us. We could assume maybe it has to do with Daniel's dietary restrictions, or for some reason he doesn't want the food that's been presented that Nebuchadnezzar wants him to eat. So he's going to ask for something else. And that official that we were talking about, I may butcher his name again, Ashpenaz, is kind of like, well, why would you want to do that? You know, he's giving you all this. Why do you want to do that? I don't necessarily want to do what you're asking me because it's going to put me in danger. It says, even though Scripture does not specify the issue with the food and drink, there was a problem. And if Daniel ate the food, he would defile himself. Again, it doesn't specify, but so basically, let's just say this. Daniel says, and we got to take his word, right? We believe this is the Bible 100%. In his heart, he says, if I eat this, it's going to defile me, right? So he can either do it or he can not do it, right? And he's a man of faith and says, I'm not going to do anything that's going to defile me and make me bad in the eyes of God, right? It says, the eunuch expressed his hesitancy due to his fear of the king if Daniel and his friends showed signs of malnourishment. So this official's thinking that, man, why don't you want to eat these meats? Why don't you want to drink this drink? Because if you don't do it, you're going to look malnourished. I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing, and you're going to make me get in trouble here. But it says Daniel's chief concern related to his commitment to keeping God's standards. His determination was a testimony for all Israelites. And his trust in the Lord gave him the resolve to take the action, right? Do we have that much trust in God? That when we're in a situation where to the outside world it might not make sense, but to us, we know that God's telling us to do something. Do we have that much trust in him that we're going to do it? It says, verse 9 states that God had brought Daniel favor. The favor and tender love given by God was portrayed in the gracious manner that Daniel and his friends handled themselves in this situation. And Daniel determined he would do right in the eyes of the Lord. And as believers, we should be able to explain our reasons for holy living with kindness and humility when asked to compromise. So, let's just say we're in a situation, we're at work, and they tell us that, you know, we're going to have to sign this form or something that says something that goes against the Bible, right? So, your humanly head says, I better sign this, you know, I'm going to lose my job. I got to pay bills. But God is sitting there telling you, no, don't do that. Your employer is not your boss. I'm your boss. I'm the king. That boss that you think is your boss, I'm his boss. He may not know it. Bottom line is, the example I'm trying to give is, when we are asked to compromise things that go against the Word of God, we cannot do that. Not saying you're going to lose your salvation if you do something like that, but it's heavily frowned upon, and God doesn't want that. It's not to say that we're not going to make mistakes, but if we compromise to the outside world and just say, well, I'll go home and read my Bible, I'll believe it, but I'm not going to go out and tell nobody. In short, then why are you reading the Bible? Why are you trying to learn more and more, right? You think about it. Just, you know, the Bible is the ultimate book. But when people will talk about books, you know, let's just think about a book that maybe, why do you read? You know, why do you read a book in school? In the end, it's you take a test or you learn more. It's supposed to teach you examples, and you're supposed to apply that, right? You know, that's the theory. If you do that with any other book, why do you not do that with God's Word? Why do we not want to go out and take what we've learned from it and tell it to other people? Because it's the one book in the whole world that's going to, you know, give you everything you need. You know, you don't need a constitution or a dictionary or a thesaurus. Everything that ever has been thought of in the world that needs an answer is going to be found right in that Bible. Going on. Verse 11. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us poults to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented unto them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them poults. So basically here, water and vegetables. That's what they're going to survive off of for the next 10 days. And basically, Nebuchadnezzar's guys are thinking this ain't going to work. But we're going to let you do it. We're going to keep an eye on you. Turns out at the end of the 10 days, Daniel ate and told him what he wanted and what he was going to need. And basically, you see verse 15, 16 says they're fairer and fatter. So basically they were looked more healthy, I guess you could say, than the ones that was eating what Nebuchadnezzar gave. And, you just think of the theory when we hear that. If I said, we're going to give you Brussels sprouts and just green beans and carrots, or I said, I'm going to put a ribeye and baked potato on your plate every night, right? What are we going to pick? We're probably going to pick that steak to kind of give you, just kind of put an announce there. That's what they were thinking. How are you going to look better and feel more healthy and be more, up to standard just eating vegetables than what we're offering here? But Daniel had faith in God that he was going to provide and it was going to work. Says a guard was placed over them to watch them for 10 days. You think of that. And during that time, they would only eat vegetables and drink water. And at the end of those days, just like I said there, they were in better shape. And it says God allows his people to be tested. Now let's just stop there. He don't tempt us. We have free will and we choose. But I do believe that, Christians, I think we are sometimes in situations that test us to see how are we going to react. How are we going to represent him? Again, he doesn't tempt us. We have free will to make that choice of what we want to do. But there's definitely situations that we're in life that are we going to bow to the pressure and go with the crowd? Or are we going to stand alone and say, no, I'm with God? And it says, the test that Daniel and his friends went through would allow their character to be strengthened. And I fully believe that too, 100% with all my heart. God blesses us. He rewards us in his time and how he wants to reward us, not necessarily with something we want. But I fully believe that if we're in those situations and we stand with him, those people at the time, they may mock us, they may laugh at us, they may talk behind our backs, whatever they may do. But I fully believe it strengthens us as Christians, and I think God is going to bless us for representing him. I fully believe that. And, but to go back to the food they were eating, it's not necessarily the food that made them better in the sight of Nebuchadnezzar's folks. It wasn't the food. That was straight God. It was God that allowed that. So don't get just caught up on the physical food. But it was that Daniel, and they made that decision that they weren't going to eat what was provided to them. They wanted to stick to what they knew and what God had told them to do. Going on to verse 17. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Kind of a foreshadowing there, talking about the visions and dreams of what we'll talk about for the next few weeks. We know that Daniel could prophesy and see a lot of things. And it says, as newcomers to Babylon, they had much to learn about Babylonian life and culture, and God gave them the ability to do so. They studied so they could better understand the culture in which they lived. Again, going back to that, we just need to realize that we may live in America, but as Christians, and whoever's out there listening, or the people that monitor us, they're going to say this is crazy, but our country, they hate Christians. They do. If they didn't, there would be no debate if abortion was a crime, or was it, there would be no debate. So we don't need to get caught up that we think just because we live in America that we're in good shape, we're okay. Because I'm telling you, the things that we say and hear, it may be protected in our own eyes, but I believe that we're coming to the day that they'll bust through here and say that we're talking hate speech and that we're talking down on people. I mean, right now we could do it in here, but I'm telling you, if we went out into the workplace every day and started telling people what was in the Bible, they would fire us immediately. They would say, you're being hateful, you're discriminating. And I can tell you, those two words, God don't do any of that. He never does that. He just states the fact and states truth. And that's what we need to do. And we don't need to compromise that. I always joke, and actually got a book on homesteading at Christmas. I sent to Joey and Sonia. I'd probably die real quick. But maybe not. I better learn how to prepare, because I joke about that, but I'm telling you, I really believe that we're going to be in those days pretty soon where we better know how to do things, because we're not going to be able to depend on our friends and our family. We can depend on believers, I hope, but that's about all we're really going to have. And the Bible doesn't make no secret about it. It tells us that family and friends will turn on us. Right. And I'm not, we've always heard that saying, blood's thicker than water, but I do believe there's a day where I'm going to be able to trust Joey that I'm going to be able to trust my own cousins or something. I fully believe that, because he's a brother in Christ, and we got to stick together, because there's coming a time where we're going to be hunted. Yeah. We will be hunted. And people say, that's just so crazy. How can you believe that? It's not crazy. It happened to Christ himself and all of his followers. I mean, they hunted them. And if it happened to them, and he's telling us what's to come, it's going to happen to us. So we just need to be prepared for that. Going on, verse 18. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king, and in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. So kind of short there, they bring him for Nebuchadnezzar. He's all about them now. Think about this. They are captives. They are people that was basically, we conquered an area, we took them in with us. And now he's seeing them before them, and basically, what does it say he determines there? He finds them 10 times better than any of the astrologers or the geniuses of his time, right? So now he's got them, and wow, these guys, they know what they're doing. But ultimately, it's God there. It's God allowing them, putting them in position to glorify him. Now again, we know that we'll be in positions where we can glorify him, and not everybody is going to turn. Not everybody is going to want to do that. Probably the majority of the people are not going to want to turn to him. But that doesn't mean that we just stop. We got to keep going, because if we can just reach one person, I think that matters. I think when the time comes, I think there will be Christians in heaven that did donate millions of dollars to charities. But I think the person that's there that's broke as can be and that led 2 or 3 people to the Lord, I think that's going to be a bigger blessing than whatever money you dropped somewhere. And we need to remember that it's not always necessarily, about what we have on this earth, material goods. It's about what is the desire of our heart, and how many people are we actually going out every day. And I'm talking to myself too. How many people are we talking to about God on a daily basis? Says Daniel reminds us the importance of remaining faithful to the Lord no matter the situation. Quotes Proverbs 1:7 here. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. I think we talked about this probably a year or so ago about what is the fear of the Lord. It's not necessarily, I'm scared. It's just about having that respect, that awe, and understanding that God is everything. God can do anything he wants. But what does it say there? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. When we reach salvation, when we can fully understand, and we never will fully understand, but you get what I'm saying. When we can get that God is the one, everything's in his power. That's step one of us getting any type of wisdom or knowledge. First, we got to understand that these clothes that we got on, this building that we're in, it's all his. It's all because of him. You think of the technology that we have in this world, and some of it's good and some of it's bad, but you think every little tiny bit of that goes into that. God had the knowledge of that. The knowledge that we have is God's knowledge. He's the one that gave it to us. It's not that we're just some smart people and in this, And I saw that article you said about the earth cooling and all this. I saw it on Channel 2, I think, on their Facebook. But we think that we know everything, and we really have no idea. And the sad part is that, there's people out there that are scientists, when I'm not degrading them, but they got all this schooling, and it ain't gonna mean a hill of beans when they take that final breath. None. Talking about, uses the word there, magicians, in verse 20. It says, these individuals would have been expected to discern the will of the gods. Notice that S, gods. Because they didn't know the real one. But it says, yet Daniel and his friends surpassed them in wisdom and understanding. So you think here, you got these Babylonians, and I wasn't there. I don't know, but I imagine, in today's time, trying to analyze it and put it in comparison, they're probably, all dressed fancy. They probably, they're just, and then you got Daniel and his guys over here just, probably in rags. But Nebuchadnezzar realizes, whoa, these guys are a little different here. And that's not to say that he necessarily agreed with everything they said, as we'll see, but still, when we are believers, when we follow Christ, there's something that just radiates off of us that people can see, whether they want to admit it or not. And I'm not saying there's a glow on us or something like that, but there's just something different. And you can tell when people are, when they're in it or they're not. I see people and they say, yeah, I go to church, I believe in God. And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna sit back and watch, And like, I got saved at 10, but I can tell you I wasn't really living for the Lord probably until midway through college. And I just kind of had to understand it. I don't know. I ain't going to stand here and lie. There wasn't just some epiphany and I can go back to a day, but I just remember that there just was a lack of maturity there. Like, I just wasn't, okay, yeah, I'm saved. I go to church. I know a little bit of the Bible, but I wasn't living for God. And, I still fall short every day, but at this age, I still feel a little more that I'm doing better than I was. And that really should be all of our objectives. We should be able to look back a year ago and say, I'm closer to God, or I'm doing more for God than I am now than I was 2 weeks ago. And we should constantly just be striving. And then by the end of our life, when it's time to lay it down, we can say, I did everything I could. And I know that I'm not going to be able to ever say I did everything I could, because I fall short all the time. But going back, it says Daniel was probably, it says almost certainly. I don't know that. Joey could interject. It says Daniel was almost certainly a teenager when, as an exile, he faced the decision to follow God's standard about proper eating. And as Daniel was faithfully exercising personal integrity, God was laying a foundation for his lifetime of service. Read this too. It says, in all the kingdom, no one earned greater respect from Nebuchadnezzar than Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The fact that they were Jewish undoubtedly caused concern among local Babylonian officials who would have viewed them as outsiders. So let's just take us for a second. If we went up to Washington, D.C., and they said, there is a church in Polk County, Georgia, that we are going to start listening to and taking advice from. Everybody in Washington, D.C. would say, what's gotten into, why would we listen to anybody from Polk County, Georgia, right? Kind of what the Babylonians were probably thinking here is, what's so special about these guys? There's probably a little uproar. And we're going to see here, we know they're going to get Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they're going to get thrown into a fire, right? Again, at this time, they have a respect, something radiating, something that he sees, but still, they probably, obviously, were not accepted because they were outsiders. But it says God's word challenges us to live with integrity when we face the world's pressure to compromise. And in short, that's really, we could probably just read 3 or 4 verses and got that. But that's the lesson today, is that Are we going to have integrity, or are we going to compromise? And, we could probably all stand here and say that we've compromised at some point in our life, whether it's something minuscule or whether it's something major. We've probably backed down from telling somebody something we felt that we should have told them. And, that's something that we got to live with. But overall, as Christians, for the most part of our life, when we're in situations, and it's every day, are we going to have that integrity? The world's already changed the definition of what a boy and a girl is. Are you going to have that integrity to say, no? I know it is. And, they tell us, the theme for the past 2 years is follow the science, trust the science. How can a scientist that's ever had a biology class not say that there's a boy and a girl? They need to trust the science. They need to trust what's there. And it's just so crazy because, 5 years ago, would we ever thought that would have been a debate, a boy and a girl? No, we wouldn't have thought. As crazy as it seems like we're living in now, what is 5 years from now going to hold? We're going to have to come back on January 23rd, 2027 and see where we're at then, because it's probably going to be something crazier. But none of it surprises God. None of it. To us, it may seem and it may take us by surprise, but to God, none of it does. And we just need to realize that as sad as it is, not joking about it or not mocking them, but it seems crazy, I know, but there are people out there that believe that stuff that's getting told to them. And as Christians, it's up to us, because the world's not going to tell them, it's up to us to sit down and try to reach these people. And I know, again, this sounds crazy. It will be like talking to a child. That's what it'll be like. And think about it. What does a child do? And I'm dealing with it right now with Kelson at 2s. You tell them something, they understand it maybe, but they don't understand it. They kick, they scream, they don't. In comparison, that's what it's going to be like talking to the world as it just gets crazier and crazier. Because to us, that's something that sounds so simple, that God created us in 6 days, rested on the 7th. To us, that it's a man and a woman. It's a man and wife. To us, that sounds so easy. But 10 years from now, when the world has indoctrinated and tried their best, it's going to be like talking to a kid, because they're going to reject every bit of it so much. They already do. But we can't give up. We're supposed to love everybody, right? We're supposed to saved, not saved. Not means, we're supposed to accept what they do. We're never supposed to just accept sin, but we're supposed to love them. And let's just use Kelson and Lennox. They're our kids. We love them, right? We'll never give up on them. Believe me. Hannah got her ready, and I was frustrated because she wasn't listening, but then I saw her in a little dress and her ponytail, and I was like, I just can't stay mad at you. I can't get frustrated. But you love that kid so much that you're never going to give up on them. You're going to tell them everything you can and just pray for them constantly. I know it's a hard concept, but the Bible tells us we're supposed to do that with the outside world too. We're not supposed to give up on it. We're supposed to keep trying as many times as they reject us. And you think about Christ. He walked this earth a little over 30 years, and they crucified him. I'm not saying that we're all going to get thrown up on a cross, right? But nobody endured what he did. But he, as he's telling his followers, and as they're writing everything down in the Bible, what does he tell them? That, hey, you're going to experience the same thing. The way they're treating me, they're going to treat you like that the rest of your life. Until I come back, it's going to be that way. And that's why, again, going back to the lesson, tying it all up, we're called to have integrity. We're called to be firm and stand on his word, because I'm telling you, I fully believe with all my heart, if we stand on his word and the world punishes us to their standards, God's going to take care of it. He's going to take care of us. He's never going to forsake us. Don't mean it's not going to get difficult. Not mean it's not going to get hard. There may be struggles, but he's never going to forsake us, and he's always going to be here, and we got to stay firm in that, and I truly believe that he will bless us. So you might got anything?
Yeah, I was going to say something that maybe came with this day for me because of the sacrifice side. There's a lot of different things that they say. And you were talking about the workplace, and I was thinking of Pastor Ray, as he was pastor in Florida, and he was an engineer before he got into ministry. And he said, I remember I was there, and there was a promotion, and another guy was a Christian that was another engineer. Well, he goes, I'm going to get the promotion. The guy had left. And he goes, I want that promotion, you know. And he said, you know, he was just showing how God's in charge. And the guy didn't get the promotion. And he said, I don't understand it. You know, he got bitter. So he said he undermined the guy that got the job. And finally, he got the job. And he said he was so happy. He goes, 2 months later, they eliminated that job. And he was out of the job. See, God was protecting him, but he let himself get where this is what I want. See, instead of what God wanted.
Yep.
A lot of times it's easy for us to do that.
True.
Good job today.
Yep. Amen.
All right. Mayo, you want to close us out?
Heavenly Father, we thank you again for today, beautiful day to you in this time that we can come worship you. Thank you for the lesson, the kindness, love, Lord, and help us to apply to our lives and be better Christians and better witness for you. Lord, as we come to worship service, I pray you should bless the music, lift our voices to you and sing. And then this joy brings the message, Lord, I declare you should be in the words that you bring this morning, that we will have open hearts and open ears.